Hello, good afternoon to you. Welcome to the 11th of September edition of the Marketplace. My name is Emmanuel Ampachi. We have been coming to you live on Joy News, also streaming live on Facebook. Thank you very much for making a date and welcome back. Some key financial issues on how to move the financial system forward were highlighted at the third edition of the Joy Business Financial Services Forum in Accra yesterday. The aim was to help chart a sustainable path for the financial system. Here's a wrap by Philip Nampuri and Karen Dodu.
Several financial stakeholders invited, as well as a section of the public, took part in the discussion through questions and contributions on the theme of the day.
I think it's evident that there's been quite some abuses as far as the understanding of how banking operations should be conducted vis-a-vis how we have actually conducted them in the country, leading to the situation that we find ourselves. I think in the circles of banking profession, we do say that a bank is not in the business of selling real assets. And so if in the process of dispensing credit, you don't do your credit analysis to the extent that you find yourself in a default situation and you are burdened with real assets, then indeed you're going to have to deal with greater challenges further down the line. And so the understanding, I hope that the framework that has been given for issuing further licenses in future will ensure that the understanding of the business of banking is actual, so we don't find ourselves where we have been.
But I think we've all focused on the root causes instead of looking at the next phase, which is now what. I expected that there will be best practices being shared with us, and also the way forward as to the structure of the banking in terms of credit monitoring, because the NPLs are basically created because of the credit issues and the monitoring issues that we have in the bank. So I'm not too excited that we did not appropriate the time well, such that we could focus on the now what, because that's where the focus should be. The banking, the financial sector, I won't say that the crisis is all over, but the reforms, the steps to take, what do we do best so that we avoid such a crisis again?
Meanwhile, financial consultant and chartered accountant Dr. Daniel Sedo, on his part, called for a review on the persons that are appointed on boards.
We should know the size of our economy and probably determine the level of efficiency we run in this whole economy. Because we give out money, people are not paying, the money is back. Our level of efficiency is just bad. And I always say that interest rates, inflation, exchange rates are the measure of the level of efficiency. So till we start working on efficiency in our economy, we'll still have these challenges.
In a separate development, Managing Director of EcoBank, Dan Saki, says the banks cannot be blamed alone for the very high non-performing loans.
Even a delay, even by the major player in the economy, which is government, in resolving some of the concentration issues we've talked about. Energy sector was mentioned, BDCs were raised. Even if the government finishes its part, the residual issues with the BDCs needs to be resolved. The final point I'd like to make is that if we don't sort out the judiciary to ensure that banks can realize the collateral when there is default, then we'll be back to square one. Our credit culture as a nation, as a people, is bad. People take loans and the expectation is that about 20% will not pay. Until we resolve this issue through an effective judiciary that is able to help banks collect, and in time, then we are not going to get anywhere. So let us pay some attention to that side of our business.
Vice President of the Indum Group, Dr. Nanakweku Indum, also called on government to create a separate channel for payment of construction works completed in the country. This, he believes, will reduce the exposure of banks into the sector, which can lead to the collapse of the banks.
And there were some exposures in the energy sector that were affecting the systemic banks, and something was put in place to correct it. And I'm sure if you look into the details, you'll see that there are some exposures in the contractor area of this industry that are affecting a number of financial institutions, some of which I would argue would not have collapsed if those debts were paid. So I'm wondering whether, I don't know if this is a question that anyone on the panel can answer, But is there something in store similar to ESLA that could be put in place for the contractors? Because if that was done, or if it can be done, it will really improve the situation for many financial institutions.
It could be concluded that issues on the financial sector are many, and the debate for a more sustainable financial sector could just be beginning.
Your corporate governance consultant and lawyer Marian Bano has criticized the decision to embark on sector reforms without also touching on the Bank of Ghana's own corporate governance structure. She questioned why the governor of the central bank is also the board chairman of the bank.
We're talking about the shareholders, we are talking about the directors, we are talking about management, we are talking about the internal auditor and the external auditor, we are talking about the company secretary, and we are talking about the regulator. Now, if you look at this structure, the most important pillar is the board of directors, because the shareholder sometimes is the culprit. The shareholder has self-interest, but it is the board of directors who hold the balance. But then the question is, how strong are they? How strong is the board? That is why corporate governance today is talking about independence in the boardroom. Independent-minded people who are strong enough and are able to check the shareholder who owns the business.
In a related development, council member of the Institute of Directors Ghana and a corporate governance expert, Professor John Bright Komla Ahetu, has also criticized the refusal by successive governments to change the status quo with regards to appointing both CEOs and board members of state institutions. He was speaking to my colleague Norvan Akwa-Hayford.
It's only in Ghana that we can make that argument. It's only in Ghana. Somebody must be accountable to somebody. The governor of the central bank must be accountable to the board. The board must be accountable to somebody. Somebody must make a policy, somebody implement it. So what we have now, which I've always kept saying, and this abnormally started from Agama's days, the longest serving governor of Bank of Ghana. Those days, they made the rules, they implement them up to today. Nobody has the nerve to say, no, that is not the best thing to do. That's not the right thing to do. It's not the best thing. The CEO is the governor, full stop. There must be a board. He is a member of the board.
But not to chair it?
Not to chair it at all. You cannot see, you cannot set a goal for yourself and come and measure yourself and then evaluate yourself at the end that you have done well. Where?
Would that not undermine the independence, as some have said?
No. The board is independent. The board is independent. The monetary policy is independent. It's independent. It's not manned by government. The best people who should run those things, who should be on those things, they are the ones who should be there. So independence is a farce. Independence is a farce.
Well, why do you say that it's a farce? Because, I mean, there have been several arguments.
As for arguments, you can get them a dime a dozen. A dime a dozen. Some of them don't even make sense. Some of them, the people don't even know what they're talking about.
Let's look at the appointing authority as well. So you have, let's look at the government sector a lot. So the president is appointing the CEO of a company.
First of all, the president cannot appoint CEO of anything.
He hasn't got the right.
That's the beginning of the anomaly.
It's a state-owned institution.
So what?
It's a state-owned.
Who said that he should appoint the CEO? His duty is to appoint the board.
Through the Public Service Commission.
No, his duty is to appoint the board and let the board appoint the CEO. But when governance change, it is easy to appoint one person as a CEO. Easy, very quick. But a board of 10, 12 people takes time to vet them. So we have allowed the president to appoint CEOs, and the CEOs will come in place 1 year after, before the boards are appointed. And the question becomes, who is who? The CEO have assumed a position. I know the president, he's the one who appointed me, so who are you? And there are CEOs who challenge the authority of the boards. Not too long ago, the institute, we went to meet the president and we brought this up to him. He agreed.
So if he agreed, are there moves to ensure that we can reform the laws so as to prevent what is happening? Would you call that conflict of interest?
It's not so much the law. It's the issue about we know the right thing to do and we don't want to do it in Ghana. The president knows very well. The people who are advising the president, they know very well that that is not how you run corporate governance. They know it, and he knows it. Everybody knows it. But if it's in your interest, you go ahead and you do it.
And that's why I'm asking that, do you see that as conflict of interest? President appointing CEOs,
it's a serious...
president also appointing the board. And so it's basically the president appointing everybody, so everybody goes to say yes,
That's
sir.
it. Everybody say yes, sir. If you can go to the president, I can go to the president. So it's a serious conflict of interest. And definitely we pointed it out to him. And as intelligent as he is, he understood. Now it's a question of to take steps to correct. So now, do you remove the CEO or do you remove the board? Do you allow the board to approve of the appointment? No. Can the board say, no, we are not going to approve of him, remove him, we'll appoint somebody ourselves? Every board has nominations committee, and those are the people who look around to determine who should be the best person we should engage. Not political considerations, not I hate you, not I love you, not you bring me some money. No, that's not the issue.
But the president could probably make some recommendation to the board
and say
but that, is that I have one or two people
that's a recommendation.
You should look at.
That's a recommendation. It's not binding on me.
It's not binding on the board?
No, it's not.
Now, scores of inhabitants of Elmina on Tuesday hit the streets pressing the government to do something to help save the Indum group of companies. The protesters are calling on government not to look on for the collapse of the business that feed many people of the town. Richard Kojunyako has more in this report.
My background speaks volumes about what is happening here. Close to 300 people have been protesting on the street of Elmina today. It's been 4 hours of protest at Elmina. A concerned resident of Elmina who relied on the jobs provided by Dr. Papa Kwesi Indom. They want government to reconsider its decision to collapse the businesses of Group Indom. They say Dr. Indom is like their dad, like their mom, like a breadwinner, if you like. And so collapsing the businesses would affect them. It has a lot of incalculable consequences on them. So they want government, insofar as government has been able to support some local banks, they want government to also lend a helping hand or some kind of support for Dr. Papa Kwesi Indom, because the people here in Elmina are suffering and they will be the hardest hit should this happen to them.
In 1874, the colonial administration attacked a respectable and responsible entrepreneur from Elmina. We have not had another industrial icon in this town. The closest we have had is Dr. Papa Kwesi Indom. Regrettably, the same vindictiveness, hatred, backbiting, and destructive tendency which the colonial administration meted out to implement is being repeated by our own self-government to Dr. Indom and his businesses after 150 years. We, the people, have not seen any prominent indigene of the land with such an entrepreneurial skills, talent, and gifts like Dr. Papa Kwesi Indom. It is for this reason that we believe such people are rare. They are gifts from God and they must be protected and supported.
We have also been speaking with some of the people that have been taking part in the demonstration. What's your name?
Frederica.
Now, about 17 and when you watch it to now.
Oh, because because I go father. We're collapsing the Ninjuman. It's your father, the Ninjuman, no, the man. And why to am a young brain, my young
one and OG in the Najuman. This spokesperson says that government has deliberately collapsed the jobs of the Dr. Papakwe syndrome, and they want government to do something about it. He says that government should leave Dr. Papakwe syndrome alone and allow his businesses to thrive and flourish, because now all the work they do, the businesses they do, those who are into sewing, they sew and the people never come back for their clothes or something, and so they want that to stop. They want government to rather support Dr. Papakwe syndrome to succeed in his business rather than collapsing it. From the frontage of the Elmina Castle, my name is Richard Kwejonya for Joy News.
And away from financial sector issues, as many begin to raise concerns over 10% increase in transport fares, transport operators have justified the increase, which is to take effect next Monday, September 16. This is despite the fact that fuel prices have not gone up above the accepted 10% benchmark in this quarter. George Rafe has more in this report.
The unionized transport operators last night announced a 10% increase in fares effective next Monday. This will affect intercity transport, popularly known as trotro, long-distance vehicles, as well as shared taxis. There was some agreement between transport operators and government that any time petroleum prices go up by more than the accepted benchmark of 10% in a quarter, that should trigger talks for fares to go up. But the national chairman of the Ghana Road Transport Union, Kwame Kuma, tells Joy Business the rate of increase in other variables made it difficult not to review transport fares this time round.
If you are talking about increase of medicine, we are not talking about only fuel, and fuel contains about 33%. And we have negotiation with the ministry. We can see that people are asking for increment, and we haven't done that because they haven't hit the 10%. But now the calculation has already with the 10%.
Mr. Kuma added that they are engaging all their members over the next 5 days to ensure that every driver sticks to this 10% increase. The development will result in prices of some goods and services going up in the coming weeks as a result of this increase. It could also increase the cost of living in the country going forward.
Now, the National Road Safety Commission says it will introduce a proper legal framework soon to regulate movement of tricycles. Director General May Obriyabwa says proliferation of tricycles makes it difficult for law enforcers to monitor their activities. She was speaking at a joint transport ministry engagement with commercial transport operators in Kumasi.
The law as it's now tells us that we are not supposed to use it for commercial purposes. However, like the minister rightly said, it's becoming more and more difficult for the police to enforce the law. And therefore, we are considering looking at the law again. We've gone around the whole country, let's say the former 10 regions. And we are here to the doctors, because they also have a concern. Yes, they also have concerns. We think that if we cannot really, if we have to let them work, then we need to regulate them.
The engagement was aimed at soliciting and documenting concerns and ideas of stakeholders. Koko Furiesia, my sector minister.
As a result of the engagement, you'll be able to find out the causes or the reasons. Then as a stakeholders in this area, we all come together and put in measures to reduce them. Already, there are some in our regulation. Implementation is becoming a problem. If we cannot implement it, can you modify it? Can you look at it and say that going forward is the way that we need to look at it? If it is that the punishments are not severe enough to deter the drivers or whoever or whichever way these accidents are occurring, can you come out with other severe punishment to serve as a deterrent to these people? These are some of the measures that you want to take. Whichever regulation, whichever airline that we bring, along with the police to make sure that they enforce the law. That's what I'm saying, that if you bring something which are not enforceable, what do? We need to go back, look at it again, then come out with more pragmatic measures that will help us to calm this mission. The reason why I'm saying is that of late, If you don't have knowledge, you can't drive certain cars. Because the cars which are being manufactured recently are all electronic cars. You must have the competency in that area before you can drive. So the driver is so key because he's not carrying only himself. He's carrying about 45, 50 people per bus.
Meanwhile, Ghana Private Road Transport Union is calling on government to train and allow commercial drivers to carry arms. Regional Vice Chairman Sumaila Boache observes incessant attack by highway robbers makes traveling a dangerous adventure.
Day and night, 24 hours in I'm Kremu, Kago Dabes, Atukuta Dabes, Baza Kasian and Kitwa.
All the time we are on the road. Armed robbers attack us all the time. So if we can be given special training to handle guns to protect ourselves and passengers, it will be apt.
Reporting
for JoyNews for September.
Now, Deputy Chairman of the African Union Commission, Ambassador Kwesi Kwartey, has challenged British companies to place tariffs on products from Ghana into the UK. Ambassador Kwesi Kwartey told Joy Business that the African Union is ready to meet with the European Union and the UK in separate meetings on trade deals after Brexit. This follows the indicators by some UK companies that new tariffs will be placed on supplies coming from Ghana and other African countries after October, when the UK finally exits the European Union. But speaking to Joy Business, Ambassador Kwesi Kwartey assured the interest and survival of Ghanaian companies are paramount.
That the African Development Bank has attributed some funds, and the EU is ready to operate. I don't know the specific figures yet, but we only just started. We are not just getting going. The funding will come when we see that, when the world sees the potential, that will bring more funding.
This issue about Brexit and Ghana or African countries trading in the UK, then there's been this call for us to roll over the EPA or sign a separate agreement with the UK.
You know, we have historic relations with the UK. But I think that it is naive for the UK to assume that because we're a colony and that they have left Brexit, we're just going to bend over backwards and roll over for them. Whatever it is, we're going to negotiate with them at arm's length. We're also going to negotiate with the EU. We have a balance of interest and always ensure that it's the Ghanaian national interest and the African national interest that will determine which move to go.
But they've already sent signals that they will be charging tariffs.
They can send signals, but we are moving together as an African integrated economy, and we'll move in that direction, no matter what tariffs they put up.
So how soon are we going to see this?
I have no idea how soon, but probably sooner than I think.
Because in the next 2 or 3 months, they will be moving out.
That is up to them. We are dealing with the rest of the world. All right? We are not going to be running after them. Let them understand that. Okay?
The issue of language barrier has been enumerated on several platforms. What is the way forward?
Language, you know, can be a barrier. At the same time, it can be a bridge. Ghana is surrounded by Francophone countries. Okay? They may speak French, but they are African people. Let me give you an example. Our director for economic affairs in Addis Ababa is called Rene Kwasi. He passed away. I went to the funeral in Côte d'Ivoire. To my surprise, the service, everything was conducted in Twi. He's a brown man. When I told people, they can't believe it. I went with President Mahama, who was his secretary. We paid a visit to Côte d'Ivoire. He saw some chiefs in Kente and Palanque. He asked me, when did the Ghanaian chiefs come? They were Ivorian chiefs speaking Twi. So the link between us is already strong. We are divided by 2 European languages. That challenge can become a motto for integration. We can have Ivorian students, graduates unemployed, teaching French in Ghana. We can have Ghanaian students, graduates unemployed, teaching English in Côte d'Ivoire. With a little bit of strategic thinking, what may appear as a problem can become a motto for finding the solution. Then Ghanaians and Côte d'Ivoire, Ivorians will get to know each other better and recognize that they are the same people and they are not necessarily different, and that the nation state occurred at a certain point in time in history.
And that's where we draw the curtain on this edition of the Marketplace. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Aboy.